Good morning, Sunshine Country. It's 17 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock. Building rural wealth. I'll get it out in a minute. Dan. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Dan Miller, how are you?
Hey, good morning, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing well. Nice to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's a good morning. Nice morning. Sun shining.
And we have with us Amy Shipley. Amy, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well, Aaron.
Sometimes life gets a little crazy. That sometimes goes into our financial aspect of life as well. So, Dan, what are we talking about here?
Well, it does. And you know, Aaron, you're right. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. And then the other thing with the new year, you know, of course, every year we talk about new year, new beginnings. You know, I always hate to bring up the term resolutions, you know, but it is the beginning of the new year. And what we see, you know, in the beginning, a lot of folks we work with, you know, sometimes whenever they're working with their money, they can get frustrated. They can, you know, they can get, you know, they're unsure. And it's not because they're irresponsible. You know, they're actually usually very capable people. You know, they're busy and often feel they get stretched pretty thin. You know, they've been building a career, a family, building a farm, you know, a business, and, you know, and maybe their planning hasn't caught up to all that yet. And, you know, life happens. We all just get involved. And, you know, we often, when we meet with people, we hear people say things, you know, I feel like I've done a lot of things right, but I just don't feel very organized.
Yeah.
And, you know, this isn't about being careless. You know, it's about taking life priorities and you know, handling the things that are right in front of you. So today, you know, isn't about rushing to catch up overnight. It's about getting oriented, getting organized, and taking a few steps forward. Again, it's that new opportunity to fine-tune the plans you have moving forward.
So, Dan, why do so many people feel behind?
Well, you know, like I said, you know, life stacks up. You know, complexity is faster than it stacks clarity. You know, expanding a business, you know, again, I think about that from our standpoint, you know, what all it takes, you know, you guys know that right here as well, you know, and if you're in the ag sector or whatever, you know, buying land, you know, and then there's life events that happen, you know, marriages, divorces, remarriages, health changes, you know, caring for kids or grandparents or grandkids or parents, you know, all these life stages create another layer of complexity that we all have to take into account. So, yeah, I want you to think about, imagine trying to unpack and take inventory of every piece of your life all at once. You know, that's chaos for anybody. I don't care how capable or financially savvy you are. But there's something very important to remember, that chaos doesn't mean failure, you know, because we all feel it. It just means growth happening faster than the structure around it. So once that structure catches up, you know, oftentimes those decisions feel a lot lighter for folks. Yep. And so that's kind of what we want to talk about today.
Absolutely. Chaos doesn't mean failure. I think that's an important point.
Absolutely.
That's an important point to remember. So let's just dive into this. So mental clutter. Many times, Amy, when I feel chaotic, it's just like I got, you know, 30 things in my head going on at one time. So help me talk about mental clutter to orientation.
Okay, exactly. So you think about all the things Dan mentioned that you might have going on in your life, just living everyday life, taking care of things that you need to take care of. So when it comes to your finances, you might be thinking of statements you say to yourself, you know, I don't even know what all I have. I may have been changing jobs and each one has a different 401k plan. I don't even know exactly what's out there. You might say to yourself, you know, I'm doing okay, but I'm not sure how okay. Am I saving enough? Am I spending too much? What's really going on in my life? Or you might be saying to yourself, you know, gosh, I really should be farther along in life than I am right now. And if any of those phrases sound familiar to you, then this is something we want you to walk away with today. And like Dan mentioned, you know, disorganization is incredibly common, but it's not a character flaw. It's a starting point. It just means that you really haven't focused on that yet, or you haven't had anybody help you focus on that. So most of our clients, they don't come in really neatly organized. And if that's been a stumbling block for making the call to come in and see, you know, us and do some financial planning, you know, please don't let it be, because you could bring in old statements, envelopes, pieces of accounts that you may have forgotten about, and we'll help you sort it out. So don't be embarrassed about disorganization, because it's common. How many times have we gotten those statements and we just put them in a pile somewhere? We know we have it, but we really don't know anything about it. And so, going through your records with you and helping you understand your starting point and getting the full picture is what we can help you with.
Money and time are very similar, Dan, in that many times you'll ask, where did it go?
Oh, and that's so true. And again, this is trying to help, reduce that chaotic feeling, that you have around that. And, cash flow can cause more stress than people admit, especially when really good habits haven't been truly formalized. In other words, if you're just reacting knee-jerk reactions to your spending, and that cash flow chaos, might look like maybe there's money you feel is just disappearing.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, I don't know where it's going. In other words, what am I spending my money on? And you have unpredictable months. You have guilt around your spending. And this isn't about being restriction going forward. I don't want people to think that. It's just about being aware of, where your money's going and aligning your spending with your goals. And some of the things that we talk about in the beginning with folks is look for some easy wins, and that is things like, something very simple, but, we live in the world now of everything's a subscription.
Yes.
Okay. So it's so easy to have forgotten subscriptions.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe it's just $20 a month or $40 a month, but you get enough of those added up that gets to be real money after a while, you know. And so are there some of those that I can get rid of? Doing an insurance review, do I have coverages that overlap? Sometimes that's a place where there's seepage that gets away. Do I have any high interest balances on things such as credit cards, stuff like that? And then also just small lifestyle leaks. I mean, and we're all guilty of those. And just understanding your cash flow, and understanding that and being aware, replace some of the guessing, because a lot of times that guessing and not really knowing where the money's going, that's part of the stress. That's part of the chaos.
Absolutely. You put all that together, though, and it can be really overwhelming. Amy, from I don't know where my money's going. I have all this pile. I don't know what I have. I don't know how much is here or how much is there. It can be overwhelming.
Yes,
so what do I do?
It can be. So, you don't want to try to tackle it all at once. You just want to take one step at a time. So, feeling like you need to play catch up, you often try to fix everything at once. Okay, in this one day, I'm going to get my entire financial, house in order. Well, that really can backfire on you. You might delay your decision to even start when you're looking at it. You're going to get frustrated and probably give up before you get started. But, real progress comes from order, not urgency. Not that I'm going to just do it all today and it's going to be perfect and from here on out I'll be in good shape. Just try to start with some simple things. And one of the best ways to start is look at your emergency fund. Are you consistently saving? So you have an emergency fund. That might just be a simple way to start. And do that before you look at your debt strategy. Because if you don't have an emergency fund and something unexpected comes up, which it will, then you're going to have, possibly more debt to deal with. And then that plays into how much are you saving for retirement and et cetera. It can kind of be a snowball effect.
So, Dan, one of the things, too, is debt. We talk a lot about debt. When you're in your 20s, you have your whole life to deal with it, right?
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
But when you hit your 50s and 60s, it's a little different equation.
It is. It's different.
So talk to me about debt stress a little bit.
I think, it's nothing new, but it does feel, like you said, that little bit different of a time constraint, with debt. And I think also when you get, a little longer in life, that you need to make sure it's constructive debt. It needs to be, the interest you pay needs to be opportunity costs to you're making an investment in something, not paying on what, my brother and I used to talk about dead horse debt, heavy debt or dead horse debt. You don't want it to be that. If you're taking on debt, later on in life, and I'm not saying, there's good debt for people. I mean, You know, I mean, that's good. It's an investment, but have it be productive debt.
Yeah.
Okay. And understand why you're doing it, and have it be something that, you're incorporating into part of your financial plan. And also consider the paying off of that debt in relationship to your retirement contributions and retirement to, accumulation for retirement. In other words, they need to kind of go hand in hand. Mm-hmm. And, stress or the chaos often comes from not knowing the plan, not from the balance sheet.
What about fear of the unknown? Because there are things you just don't know, Amy, and you can never know, and you won't know. So what about fear of the unknown?
That's right. You all have fear of the unknown. It's a natural. And it's really important to always remember that planning isn't predicting. It's preparing for change. Life rarely follows one straight path. It's really unpredictable. So it's so important to work flexibility into your plan. And so, how do I do that? How do I work flexibility in? Well, you can do some scenario planning, like what would a health change or a job change mean to me? And we have some really excellent, software programs that will even do that for us. We have what they call a what-if scenario. So when you're doing your financial plan, like we said, life's unpredictable. We can put in a what-if scenario, and it will tell us, okay, are you going to be all right in retirement? Are you going to have enough money to last throughout your years? And that can really provide a lot of, comfort.
Absolutely.
In that. It's the uncertainty about the future that causes anxiety, but, the flexibility and knowing there is flexibility is what gives you options and makes you feel more at ease when life changes the plan. A lot of people are feeling behind, feeling unsure, feeling hesitant to even look at their situation. But just know that getting started doesn't require, perfection. It requires willingness.
Aaron, you may have heard me say this before, small hinges swing big doors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And of course, now, I'm not going to take credit for that. I wish I could. I've stole that from a gentleman that we work with in Michigan. But I just think that's so important, just going along with what Amy said, and now is such a good time to do this, is to look at where you're at. What is causing chaos in your life or financial uncertainty? And I don't care if you're making $500,000 a year and have a $10 million estate. It happens to everybody. In other words, there may be things you own in your estate or in your financial picture that you don't understand why. I don't understand exactly how I'm going to pass those on to my kids. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to, take money out of those without a terrible tax burden. And again, it all goes back to what can we do collectively with folks to help reduce that stress, create some clarity, around the chaos or in lieu of the chaos.